author John Grisham was doing an interview with the Telegraph, and he brought up the topic of child pornography, and he had some very controversial things to say, and then as a result, he backpedaled a little bit. So let me tell you how it all went down. He wanted to talk about people who actually watch child pornography and how they're not necessarily as bad as actual pedophiles who go out and carry an act. He says, "I have no sympathy for real pedophiles. God, please lock those people up. But so many of these guys do not deserve harsh prison sentences." He continues, "We've got prisons now filled with guys my age, 60-year-old white men," I think it was interesting that he included white there, "in prison who have never harmed anyone, who would never touch a child, but they got online one night, started surfing around, probably had too much to drink, whatever, and pushed the wrong buttons and went too far and went into child porn or whatever." And then he also talks about anecdotal evidence. Apparently he had a friend who was a victim of this. Yeah. He says, "It happened to a lawyer friend of mine, a good buddy from law school. His drinking was out of control and he went to a website. It was labeled 16-year-old wannabe hookers or something like that. And it said 16-year-old girls, so he went there, downloaded some stuff. It was 16-year-old girls who looked 30. So apparently the FBI knocked on his door and arrested him, right? Here's the thing, 16-year-old girls are not of legal age. So if it was titled that way and he clicked on it, he is feeding into an illegal market that preys and exploits young kids, okay? And so when you make a statement like that, it makes it seem as though you are kind of giving those individuals a pass, okay? Which is why I understand why people would be upset with what he had to say. But there is another point that I want to make. I think that with all sex crimes and with something like pedophilia, there are gradations. So is watching child pornography as bad or worse than someone who goes out there and rapes a child or is an actual pedophile and you know, sexually assaults a child? No, it's not as bad, but that's not to say that it isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, it's still a bad thing, but well, I would go even a little bit stronger. It's obviously not as bad as that. And that's perhaps the only point in what he says that he should have made, I guess, even though it probably isn't even necessary that you make it. I especially don't understand why he threw in the white into that.
Yeah,
that seems odd.
I feel like he was trying to say, like, 60-year-old white dudes, like, you wouldn't expect that. I mean, they're just good members of society. You wouldn't put them in jail.
Yeah, and look, obviously anybody reading any version of this is going to come out of it thinking that he has gone to those websites. The way that he describes it makes it impossible to avoid that, of course. And so he's probably going to be investigated by the FBI, which is too bad for him, I guess.
There's so many of them now. There's so many sex offenders. That's what they're called. That they put them in the same prison like they're a bunch of perverts or something, thousands of them. We've gone nuts with this incarceration. But here's the thing, it's not like they're perverts, they're watching child pornography. That's wrong, okay? Children cannot consent to sex, which is why child pornography is illegal, okay? They are not of age to make an informed decision and be put in that type of position. So that's why it's against the law. And by the way, there are various laws in various states that deal with viewing child pornography. If you download it, that actually changes a little bit. I think the law is a little harsher on you if you download it in certain states. Again, gradations, right?
Well, the idea might be that then you could distribute it.
Exactly. Yeah,
which is obviously worse. Like, I don't understand why he felt the need to really talk about that. I mean, look, okay, so you supposedly had a friend who had this happen to him. You feel for your friend. You see your friend and you don't think of him as a pervert. I understand that. You don't need to stand up for people viewing child porn, I think, at this point. There are other groups that perhaps we can deal with their problems first and then we'll get to the child porn people. Look, how many years should you go to jail for viewing child porn? I don't know. 3 years seems like a long time for anything. But as you said, we don't want to feed into that marketplace. If people weren't watching it, then people wouldn't produce it. We don't want people to produce it, thus we have to stop people from watching it.
Now, of course, he got a lot of criticism for what he said, so he did backpedal a little bit. Let me tell you what his apology was. He says, anyone who harms a child for profit or pleasure, or who in any way participates in child pornography, online or otherwise, should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. My comments made 2 days ago during an interview with the British newspaper, The Telegraph, were in no way intended to show sympathy for those convicted of sex crimes, especially the sexual molestation of children. I can think of nothing more despicable. I regret having made these comments, and I apologize to all.
Yeah. It's a good backpedal,
Yeah.
a necessary one, I would imagine, as public a figure as he is.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it in the future.